In secondary school, especially in the UK, we all have to do work experience. Well, I ended up doing radio for my work experience in secondary school, which I was quite lucky to have that experience. It was never something that really came up for me, the idea of doing radio, probably more because of the fact that radio was one of those things that you think, oh, well, that's impossible. Like, I can't get into radio, that's only for like certain people that can get into that. Anyway, I ended up doing a week's worth of work experience at this radio station. And then when I moved to Manchester and my creative side started to come back out, that's when I connected with these guys, MCRLive, which are a radio station based here in Manchester. Today, I'm really excited because I'm going to go and speak to the founder of MCRLive, radio.co and podcast.co, James Mulvany, to talk about his experience of running these businesses and how he's got to where he has today.
What was the other two? Do you remember? Single Moneyless, and what was the other one? I've probably got it written down in one of my notes. I've never ever had a job. I've never worked for anyone because when I finished school, I remember being on study leave, and I learned how to design graphics in Photoshop, right? And I was like, everyone in study leave, study leave, that's when people start going out and getting part-time jobs in McDonald's or whatever. And I thought, well, I don't really fancy working at McDonald's or Subway, so how can I make some money on the internet? And I was like, right, I wasn't particularly technical. I didn't really know how to code or anything like that, but I just downloaded some dodgy copy of Photoshop, and I was like,
as we did.
Yeah, and I was like, 16-year-old kid sat in his bedroom, and I was like, right, let's figure out how to just how can I make some money. And I found some forums online, and I just literally started hustling, really, just saying, got a PayPal account on my 16th birthday because you had to be 16 to sign up for it. Went on these forums and said, right, I can design graphics, and just that's how I started, really. So, even then I was kind of figuring out ways to sort of leverage the power of the internet. And I suppose back then it was still kind of in its infancy. This was like the early 2000s, so it was 2003, 2004, and there was lots of websites and there were online business and e-commerce stores, but it wasn't to the level it's at now. And I think, it was kind of obviously going to be the future then. So there's 3 companies based here. There's MCRLive, which you've just mentioned, which is a music platform, a radio station here in Manchester. There's radio.co, which is a software company that makes software for the broadcast industry. So we power around, I think it's approaching 5,000 different radio channels all over the world. Brands are using it. We've recently had Cafe Del Mar sign up, which is very exciting because I'm a big fan of Cafe Del Mar in Ibiza. And we've also got Cafe Mambo on board, which is very exciting. So yeah, and radio.co, and then also podcast.co as well, which is the new venture, which I'll probably talk about a bit later. We launched radio.co in July 2015, so coming up 4 years ago. Probably about a year later, through our contacts in Manchester, there was an opportunity to get a digital radio license so we could actually be broadcasting over the airwaves. So initially the idea was to do something focused on the Northern Quarter, which is where our office is based, kind of quite a cool, hip sort of place to be. In Manchester, there's lots of creative companies, lots of, media agencies, that sort of thing around here. So, the idea was we'd spoken to Soho Radio down in London before, and we thought, let's draw some inspiration from that. We initially had a studio hidden away in a basement.
You know what? I saw that when I first met Reece. Yeah. We met him in that building, and we were like, it was really exciting for us because we were like, this was stepping and meeting MCRLive. I'll be honest, was like me taking my first sort of baby steps into the music scene in Manchester, which was quite exciting. And I remember him taking us down to the basement, and someone was like DJing down there. It was like buried. It was
a bit creepy though.
It was a bit creepy.
Big creepy basement in this office building in Ancoats, which Ancoats is this cool place to be. However, I didn't like the fact this was so hidden away and it was a bit sort of oppressive down there. About a year ago, February last year, we then launched a studio in Ancoats General Store, and I think that's when things started really taking off because it had more of a visual preference. That store is quite a cool hipster place as it is. It's got all the artisan breads on sale and loads of cool stuff going on in the kind of meeting area and coffee shop, and it sells beer and about 1 million different types of craft beer on sale and all this kind of stuff. So we were like, this is going to be a cool location. And so they had this kind of area, it's like mezzanine level, And the DJ, we set the decks up there, and it just sort of suddenly clicked, like, hang on, why don't we just kind of put a studio up there? We need to just put some walls around it, obviously, and try and soundproof it as best we can. And it's a great place because it's kind of like somewhere that's easy for anyone who wants to DJ on the station. They can easily get to, and obviously people who are coming through the store, that they can see it's up there, and it's sort of a talking point, isn't it? So,
what were you doing? How did Radio.co come about? Because that's quite a big business, right?
It is now, yeah. It's grown a lot, and so Radio.co came around because, I mean, I started working on it probably about 2-3 years after I graduated, and by that stage I was really lucky because when I went to university, I focused on growing a business to sell streaming media services to the radio industry, and by the time I finished uni, I was earning a good living from that. I didn't have any staff, but it was a business that made me a good living. And over the following kind of 2-3 years after I graduated, I moved to Manchester. I started hiring some sort of team members and looked at how we could kind of grow it into sort of, just making a living to something that was a bit more. And during that time, I think we noticed that there was a demand for kind of an all-encompassing platform. So what the services we were selling before were very technical. It was very much just like we were selling to what you'd imagine traditionally is a radio station.
Trying to lower the
barriers to entry.
Lower the barriers to entry.
Yeah, traditionally radio software is pretty... it's not very easy to use. It requires a lot of technical expertise to set it up in the first place. And then you need someone who has to maintain it, and you need someone to go and big boxes of racks in a server room and all this sort of thing. And the way that software was moving, this was probably like 2012-13, software was really going at that point to a cloud-based environment where you don't have to have racks of servers and lots of computers. You just kind of log into a website and it does it all for you. So it made sense to build something of that nature. Okay, so this is our developer office. So all the developers are working on both the Radio.co and the Podcast.co platforms. So this is the kitchen. Kitchen's very important. We have shopping budget every week, so we have lots of keep the fridge fully stocked. Also, freshly ground coffee. Very, very important if you run a software company to have freshly ground coffee. I think keeps everyone fueled and running forward. These are the kitchen rules, which basically it kind of looks like someone crazy's been in here, but this is basically just the kitchen rules. He's pretending not to see us.
Sorry, David.
David does sales.
For me, like the philosophy of 10 times more is by following your passion, like following the thing that you're passionate about, you can deliver 10 times more output, right? So I feel like a lot of big businesses, a lot of enterprise businesses, what they do is they basically just go, well, you didn't do that job well enough. You didn't work hard enough. So basically we're going to give you the stick and we're going to hit you or we're going to discipline you. But that doesn't work anywhere near as well as, right, what is it you feel attached to? What is it the thing that kind of like resonates with you? And then following that instead.
When you're starting out, you've got to work really hard. Every moment between lectures, I'd be going to the office and spending time working on the business. And then after uni, quite often I'd be there till 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes I'd be getting home from nights out at 4 a.m. in the morning and sat on my computer in my student room. I remember doing that like frequently. But then I think also as well, there needs to get to some stage where you learn to delegate because you can't do everything yourself. True. And ultimately as well, that's what I was doing back then. I was like master of all trades, jack of all trades and master of none. And I wasn't ever really particularly good at speaking to customers. Like sometimes customers would complain and I'd say the wrong things, I'd be like, shut up, go away, rather than...
Great customer service.
Yeah, exactly. Never trust me doing any kind of customer service role, ever. But that was the first thing when I moved to Manchester, and the business was a level where I was like, right, I can start, I'm ready to take on a first member of staff, and who's the first hire going to be? And for me, it was got to be customer service. Someone was, taking that kind of load off my back, allowed me to focus on the bigger picture and think, right, what we're going to do next and all this sort of thing. And so I think, it comes to, going back to the original point, you need to have a point where you start out and you're on your own, or it might be a couple of you, and eventually you have to delegate, because to grow you have to be able to focus on other areas. You can't necessarily do everything yourself,
But okay, so I'm going to divert things off, because obviously with your jumper with podcast.co.
Yes, let's talk about the new business.
The new business.
Weirdly, I actually tried launching a podcasting system probably 10 years ago when I was still just finishing uni, and it just flopped. There wasn't enough demand for it, but certainly, really, we started working on podcast.co about a year ago, so start of 2018. I think probably we were about a year late to the game. We should have really started probably a year before, but we are where we are. Originally, we were thinking, let's build it into radio.co as part of the system, but then it became obvious that not everyone who's approaching us on radio.co really needs a radio station. A lot of them probably want a podcast, but likewise, a lot of radio stations do want podcasts as well. So there's kind of a nice crossover, but I think there is two separate markets there as well. Building a software platform to a kind of enterprise grade, which is what we do now, versus what I was just talking about before, just kind of whipping something quickly together. If you're going to build something
different kettle of
fish,
fish, right?
Yeah. So we need to take on a new development team who are going to specifically work on that project, and also then hiring some new marketing, increasing the marketing capacity, because again, it takes time to create content, and obviously we're not creating content now for one brand. We need to create content for two brands. But one of the things we did differently with podcast.co, and it's interesting you say it's exploded, because we've not even launched yet, and we're currently in March, the start of March 2019. But we really kind of launched the podcast.co site in probably March, April last year. Really, for that first year, sort of trundling along, you get good results, but you need to work at it over time. So it made sense that we build almost like a podcasting brand before having anything to sell. So that's what we've been doing. Jamie, what are we working on at the moment?
Hello. We're currently working on a few different articles for the podcast.co brand, and it's pretty exciting because we're getting a new vinyl for the podcast studio.
Oh yeah.
I'm selling that out.
Cool. Yeah. This is technical support. So this is Jim and James. James actually just joined us yesterday. They're having a very serious meeting in here, and also doing filming. So this is my multi-use, you see. So we can go in. I just think we should probably be quiet. I think they're having an apprenticeship meeting. And
it looks like you've got creative.
It's really.
You've got creative.
It's just so they're here. Obviously, we quite regularly get sent equipment like this to review. So this is a podcasting mixer. So these guys are just filming some B-roll for the mixer. This is my friend Christian, who's a local artist who just commissioned it. There's also in Ancoat store the MCRLive logo. He did them both.
Like you're creating services and content for people to consume.
Yeah.
There's so much content out there to consume that we can basically burn through an entire life without doing it. It's
nowadays,
so true.
totally.
Like you've got Netflix, you've got Netflix is one of the main problems. It's great because everything's available, but we can just become couch potatoes, sit there and go, I'm going to do nothing for the next week.
If you've got a weekend off, or you've got people take holiday and just literally use it to sit at home and do nothing, don't they? Like I know it's I personally don't like doing that. I always think even if you're not if you've got some time off, do something. It doesn't have to necessarily be work, but go out and do something useful. I've never watched any of these things like Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones or anything like this.
I'm sorry.
Can't get into it.
I've got a lot of respect for you, but if you're not watching Game of Thrones, what's going on?
I haven't watched it either.
Have you not watched Game of Thrones?
I don't have time.
Exactly. It's what is it, 12 series or something?
I feel terrible. There's me saying you can be lazy, and then I'm like, yeah, I've totally watched Game of Thrones.
There is a lot of content, and it's so easy now. Everything's available, literally to stream. 10 years ago when I was at uni, we had to download everything. Nowadays, you just press a button and you just stream it, don't you? So
I say we live at an amazing time in human history to build, innovate, do whatever you want, because all of your pieces are literally there. Everything's available to you. The people you need to speak to, the information that you need to gain. If you've got one of these connected to the internet, you are pretty much.
But then it's very easy when you're trying to do stuff to go off in different tangents and spend all your time watching another video on how to be an amazing entrepreneur rather than trying to be one yourself.
Exactly. That's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Everything is available to us, but because there is so much, it's so easy to then go down a rabbit hole and get lost for 48 hours.
I think actually, when I was probably when I was still on my own in my office. And I kind of did a bit of that. I remember it was quite easy just to go off and spend a day just watching some random videos on like how to, I don't know, you know, how to make more money online, how to be a great entrepreneur, whatever it was, and just, you know, rather than actually trying to focus on doing the business, very easy to slip down that rabbit hole.
Being an entrepreneur, and I get nervous going down this route. If you're on Instagram, have you seen, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, like I'm making all this money, check out my Lamborghini, check out my helicopter, and actually they're not entrepreneurs, they think they're entrepreneurs. Being an entrepreneur, because you are an entrepreneur and you're obviously what you've created, what is your advice for budding entrepreneurs? See, I'm on the belief that if you've got an idea in your head, you can do it if you understand that action is one of the most important things, like less procrastination and planning and go out and do things.
So in the first episode of my podcast, which we released in January, which is Create, Reach, Inspire, handily branded on my top. You know, the first episode was three rules to run your business by. And this can be like really stuff for you as a person if you just kind of got an idea and you want to start a business, or it could be stuff that you can impart on your team, and they were. Don't fuck around, persistence is key, and always be single-minded. If things aren't going well, you've got to believe in yourself and you've got to just keep going forward. Don't mess around, because ultimately, especially when you're starting out, no one else is going to do that work for you. You've just got to crack on. It's easy to kind of get like gunned down by it, or sort of think, oh, you know, or like, you know, if you're launching, I suppose these days a lot of people are trying to build brands and build profiles, and you think, oh, you know, I haven't got enough followers yet, or I've not got enough views. Well, you've got to persist at things, you've got to be single-minded, you've just got to keep basically just pushing in the right direction. That's basically it.